I'm going to tell you about the Nobel Peace Prize. I'll tell you about that. I made a deal. I saved a country. And I just heard that the head of that country is now getting the Nobel Peace Prize for saving the country. I said, what, did I have something to do with it?
Let me try and take that question, Mr. President. You had nothing to do with the peace deal between Ethiopia and Eritrea. The president was involved in some arcane issue involving a dam that would impact the nations. It still is unresolved, but Trump did not in any way broker peace or save any lives in those East African nations. The president, he's infamous for, well, telling lies, up to, I think, more than 16,000 at last count since he took office, that according to the Washington Post. He's also notorious for taking credit for things that he had nothing to do with. Just last week, he sent a tweet trumpeting declining cancer rates, which of course are a great thing, but he's claiming his administration helped to get America there. Now, the one thing that the president didn't include in that tweet storm is he has consistently proposed cutting funding for cancer research. Now, a couple of years ago, Trump took credit for U.S. airlines wrapping up the year without any plane crashes. Of course, he had nothing to do with that. And late last year, the president, he did a victory lap at an Apple plant in Texas saying he personally helped to make it all happen. Only problem was the factory has been operating since 2013. Same pattern with foreign policy. He touted his efforts to denuclearize North Korea, but that hasn't even happened. Trump also said it was his idea to spend billions bailing out American farmers hurt by Chinese tariffs. But there was just one detail he left out. It was his tariffs that caused the problems to begin with. Now, I could go on and on with all this, but the show's only an hour long. You get the drift. I want to bring in our next guest, Rick Ungar. He's host of the nationally syndicated radio program, The Rick Ungar Show. And Rick, sometimes when I go through this, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Some of it's almost petty, to be frank. But then you put it in context to what happened and what we've learned even more about the Iranian general attack that we did on Iraqi soil. And I want to play the soundbite for our audience about our Defense Secretary, Secretary ESPER, talking about what we actually knew and more specifically didn't know when we went after the general.
The president didn't say there was a tangible, he didn't cite a specific piece of evidence. What he said is he believed.
Are you saying there wasn't one?
I didn't see one with regard to 4 embassies. What I'm saying is I share the president's view that probably my expectation was they were going to go after our embassies.
Rick, my point bringing that one up was we have reached a standard where a cabinet member will go on TV and say, well, yeah, okay, he doesn't read the briefing books. He doesn't really even listen to the briefings. But he believed that the embassies were a threat, so that is now good enough when he's telling us there's no credible evidence. And the president unequivocally said if he didn't get Soleimani then, he was going after 4 embassies. So either we are grading on the most unbelievable curve that I've ever seen, or we are allowing stuff that I don't ever remember in this country, making decisions on killing foreign leaders because the president had a gut instinct about something.
You know, I'll tell you what, Rich, you really should have Dr. Laura here, not me. I mean, this is a bizarre psychological situation going on there. Of course, you know, first of all, let me tell you this. The Secretary of Defense, along with the National Security Advisor, they both saw the intelligence, whatever intelligence there was. Their problem is that when they go on television, they tell themselves, all right, I'm not going to flat out lie for the president, but I'm going to kind of lie for the president because if I don't, I won't have my job any longer. We know that that's the case. So they end up saying things that just make it all worse, which is, well, I didn't see any evidence of these 4 embassies, but I believe the president when he says that he was going to blow up 4 embassies. Why would he believe that? He saw the briefings. He got the intelligence information. That's just the way that it works. He just can't tell the truth when the president makes him go on TV.
But I find myself, Rick, and maybe you can do a better job for my audience, I've tried to explain why this assault on the truth isn't just bad. We've learned since children, look somebody in the eye, tell them the truth. Okay, he doesn't do that. But consequentially, I can't believe anything he says anymore. And it's not because I don't like the guy. I just can't believe, A, there was ever any evidence or any facts that supported a position he came to, but also the ease at which I bet you he'd pass a lie detector test because he thinks if he says it enough, it's true. Again, I'm not trying to make you, a shrink on a couch here, but talk about the consequences of not knowing every time the president speaks if there's any truth in what he's saying.
Well, here's what's so bizarre. There are enough military experts who I've talked to. I had General Barry McCaffrey on my radio show today. He actually thinks that what the president did with Soleimani was a bit boneheaded. But we did discuss the fact that there are military experts out there who thought that this was a good move. All the president had to do is say, look, we've thought about this for a long time. 2 administrations before me also thought about it. They decided not to go forward. I decided to do it. I did it because I think that we'll be safer because of it. This guy was a bad guy. Now, had he said that, he wouldn't be lying. And you know what? He's got 43, I think, % approval from the American public on what he did here. The rest are not so happy with it. But he would have had the same 43% if he told the truth. Who knows? He might have had a little bit more. It's just bizarre. The truth in this case was better than the lie, and now we all believe it was a lie. And let's face it, people like you and I, rational people who know that the president lies about taking credit for the decrease in cancer, never mind, this goes back to 1991, we don't believe what he says. There is nothing worse in this world than lying your way into war, and that could be what's happening.
It's a tick that he's got, and to me, I'm surprised this hasn't resonated with people that may even have voted for him 3 years ago. And that is, listen, I've gotten him wrong so many times that the public has gone along to get along. I always tell that story when I saw that chopper land at the Iowa State Fair, and he had the big gold-plated Trump on the side of the chopper. He gets out. I thought they'd eat him for lunch. They ate it up. They loved him, okay? So I don't have any authority here in the American public, but nobody likes a guy who makes fun of a teenage girl like he did with Greta Thunberg. Nobody likes somebody who takes credit for other people's work, like people getting awards, like the Peace Prize, and lying about why he should get credit. It just shows how small and petty you are. Rick, in terms of that old test of who you want to have a beer with, who you'd want to be sitting next to, why hasn't the 3 years of all of these really grotesque behaviors not turned off all those people who don't consume this stuff like you and I, but make this kind of a personality test? Because I thought he would have flunked it and those voters would never have given him a second chance.
Well, for starters, I'm not sure we can use the word nobody likes somebody like that. Nobody believes it. The one thing we know about Trump voters, for one thing, a lot of them are not on social media. You see a lot of them who are saying ridiculous things. But Trump does. He makes these claims on social media. He did not stand before the nation and say, look at me, I cured cancer. But what he does is he goes on social media. So a large chunk of his audience, farmers out there in the middle in the Midwest, they probably aren't spending a lot of time on Twitter, so they don't know he says these things. As for those who do, you've got two kinds. You've got people who look at that and go, well, that's absolute nonsense, and they chuckle and they remind themselves, yeah, but I like his policies. They're the ones who will continue to vote for him. Then there are those who may have voted for him who goes, all right, this is just getting crazy. I don't know if this guy's just having fun with us or if he's seriously got something wrong with him. Those of us who believe that there's seriously something wrong with them makes us very nervous, doesn't it?
Finally, I'm curious, in your conversation with General McCaffrey, how worried is he that there are people on the international stages that will use the very things that we've been talking about Trump and an election year to advance their national interests and drag the president to something that will benefit others and not Americans? And obviously, he has the boy who cried wolf thing with a major credibility issue all wrapped in that together. How concerned are they that it wouldn't take much for where we are in Iran, as well as other hotspots, for this to turn into something really messy?
Well, I can tell you he's very worried. He really is. We talk actually fairly often. He's a regular guest on my program. I think he's a very smart guy. He's very worried about it, as are a lot of other military people who I speak to regularly. You know, it's interesting. General McCaffrey's not too worried about Iraq. It was really what we were talking about today. What would happen if we do have to withdraw our troops from there? He doesn't think we're going to see a resurgence of ISIS, but he is very worried about what this means with Iran. If we do leave, then Iran is going to take control of that country. This is a big concern, and it very much concerns him that for whatever reason, Donald Trump cannot give you the truth, even when the truth is better than the lie. Think about that. This is the commander-in-chief of the United States Armed Forces who would rather lie if it makes him sound a little more macho than give you the truth, even when the truth makes more sense, which is what we've seen here.
Rick Ungar, as always, outstanding job. Thank you so much for the time.
Thanks. Good to be here.
All right, we come back here. We're going to take a look at some politics, specifically the race for 2020. A big name drops out here, and also some new numbers show this thing is tightening up. Stay with us.